Welcome to another podcast presentation from the Zenith Corporation.
May I have your attention, please? Your podcast will begin in just a few moments. Please keep your hands inside the podcast at all times and enjoy your ride.
Hello everyone, welcome back to In Out, the Delete the Show, where we review both new and older movies. This is Gino.
This is Robert. Gio.
America.
Ricardo.
And we are here live at the graphics editor bay, formerly known as Ernie's office. And we have our special guest who invited us is...
Ernie. How you guys doing?
If you're new to the show, we have the rating system of In Out, Delete.
And if you liked the movie, you loved it, this is indeed a beautiful neighborhood. Out if you did not like it, and it wasn't very good. It's like a middle-class neighborhood. And delete if it was the worst movie ever made, and it's a horrible neighborhood like Inglewood or Pacoima.
You put La Bamba on last night?
So this week we watched Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Knives Out, and Gio's pick, which is...
Blazing Saddles.
Let's take a small little, snippet of Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Please won't you be my neighbor? Hello, neighbor.
Mr. Rogers, I'm here to interview you.
It is so nice to meet you.
You okay?
Profiling Mr. Rogers.
Boyd, please don't ruin my childhood.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, based on the true story of real-life friendship between Fred Rogers and journalist Tom Junid. I'm gonna go in on this. It's an out for me.
It's an out?
It's an out.
Oh, okay.
It's an out. I'll be straight up. It's an out.
You hate Mr. Rogers.
It's not that.
You hate children.
You hate kindness.
I know.
No, it's just...
What's wrong with your father?
He was never there. Nah, to be honest, I don't know. It was kind of boring. I thought this movie was mostly focusing on Mr. Rogers himself. You know, we're going to hear more backstory about him in a way, but it was mostly about the journalist, which to me was like, I don't give a fuck about the guy. Like, right away off the bat, I feel like he's just a douchebag all the way. And I guess it's a way for Mrs. Rogers' friendship to make him go a different route, be nice and stuff. But at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't care for you, nor I don't care about your problems. I just care about Mr. Rogers because he's the sweetest person ever. Yeah, I don't know. It's an out for me though.
Everybody's looking at me. I guess I'll go. I am in on this. I really like this movie. I thought it was a beautifully directed movie. One of the best directed movies I've seen in a while. It is a sneaky story, because the trailer sold it as a biopic, Mr. Rogers biopic, and it's not at all. He's basically a side character in a story about the journalist, right? It's a story about the guy with a lot of demons, and him, Mr. Rogers, helping him, bring those demons out and letting them go. It's a story about cynicism and being very cynical in the world and taking a look at it in a different way. I really like the way it was done.
All right, I'll go. Yeah, I'm also in on this one. Yeah, I loved everything you said and the way they made the movie, the show, and as a child, I guess I used to watch the show, so it kind of brought me back. And the Tom Hanks, when he acted at first you're watching it and you're like, oh, it's Tom Hanks playing this, but then in the middle, the movie goes on, you forget, and you feel oh, that's Rogers, and it's so good. And the side story about the guy, I thought that was really cool.
Well, it's not a side story. It is
I mean, yeah, and then I like the way that Rogers changed them, so it's kind of how pure this guy is. I love Rogers.
I love Mr. Rogers.
Fernando hates Rogers.
I know.
I love Mr. Rogers, man.
But I am in on this one.
I'll go next. I'm in on this one as well. Yeah. Same, the nostalgia scene, the whole Mr. Rogers scenes was talking back to childhood. I love the way they incorporated elements of the of the show as transitions between, I guess, the story, the real story, and then just between and the Mr. Rogers world kind of. I like that, and they changed the screen format for that too. They kind of had said it wasn't supposed to be a biopic for Mr. Rogers. It was kind of a story involving Mr. Rogers, but still expected a little bit more Mr. Rogers. But it's really good. Yeah, so I'm in.
I'm also in. Kind of like Gino, though. I guess I didn't look into it too much, and I thought it was going to be a biopic just, about Mr. Rogers. So at the beginning, when, it was this story about the guy and his whole family problems, I was like, what are we watching? Like, why? I don't care. But I changed my mind as the movie went on. Like, I found it really, really nice. Like, obviously, you get that good character development from, how the guy starts, nobody likes him, whatever, and then he meets Mr. Rogers. And it was so nice. And you do forget that it's Tom Hanks. So I thought it was really, really well done. And obviously, there's that nostalgia factor that I loved Mr. Rogers growing up. So I don't know. It's an in for me, like all around.
Ernie?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch this one.
No wonder you were a little quiet there.
Because if you remember the way that you guys set this up, you guys watched that one like 2 weeks ago, and then Knives Out was supposed to be like this week, so I watched Knives Out and Blazing Saddles.
Okay, so no wonder. I was like, where is he landing on this? Okay, but going back to...
I will say this. I do know about it's kind of, not the whole movie, but I know it's based on the Esquire magazine interview between him and Rogers. I knew that going in to like this. So when I saw that it was being portrayed as a biopic, because you get that from the trailer. Like, no joke. It's like, look at Mr. Rogers and you think you're going to get this deep, dark secret from Mr. Rogers. And I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, people aren't going to like that. So if they didn't do that, bravo, because people take Mr. Rogers super seriously.
It is, I knew it was about the magazine interview, but I thought they were going to use that as the device to look into his life, but it's really not. It's really about this guy, this writer. He has his issues, and Mr. Rogers, like, basically kind of playing like a role of a therapist, and helping him. But it's really brilliant in the way it's the guy's super cynical. Of course. He believes in the worst in everybody. That's why he's a good reporter, He
works at Esquire.
And without giving too much away, the movie kind of makes you look at yourself, right? And even in one scene, without giving too much away, it literally looks at you, And it really makes you feel like, oh man, there is good in the world. And I looked at myself and I'm like, man, I'm a real piece of shit, Because the movie is very powerful in that. Like, it really, it makes you look at your own self. And you become, the protagonist is the guy. And, you become him. I feel it's a great screenplay, I think.
It's all right. It's not. I don't think it's great. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be negative about it. I'm like, it's just like I said. I didn't care for the guy at all. I just his performance was not bad. I just didn't. His character was just too whatever's to me. And like I said, I felt sidetracked when I was really wanted to know more about Mr. Rogers than anything. And I like Tom Hanks being Mr. Rogers. And I also didn't get that feeling you guys got with the whole. I didn't believe. It was that you kind of lose. Yeah, I still see Tom Hanks being Mr. Rogers. I was like, because I don't know, it's because he has a very distinct voice, and then Mr. Rogers is also, he's a very thin man, and you see Tom Hanks, he has a freaking thick ass face. He's kind of fat, so I'm kind of saying like it never threw me out of like, oh my god, that's Mr. Rogers. No, I was like, it's Tom Hanks being Mr. Rogers. That's how I see it the whole time.
I will say, like, if you are looking for his story, Mr. Rogers' story, this is not it. It's not even close.
No, it's not.
It's not. And if you go into it like that, I do see it being disappointing. Because who is this guy? Why do we care?
Right.
I don't think it's disappointing. I think it's the opposite. Because it's like, okay, even if you didn't want a story about somebody else, you see Mr. Rogers like magic working on somebody else.
No, true.
Yeah,
true,
so I think I like, because I was also disappointed that it wasn't solely Mr. Rogers' movie, but I still got like his whole, like what he was doing. So honestly, I think we kind of get it. You just have to look for it a little bit.
I mean, it could have been like a by the numbers biopic, right? Shows him in his early young age. But it really doesn't.
But also that one, like, wasn't there like an actual documentary like a year or two ago on Mr. Rogers?
The documentary is
but just go watch that. If you want to learn about Mr. Rogers, just go watch that.
They're two different things. Yes,
Yeah,
if you want to be
yeah.
informed about Mr. Rogers, go watch a documentary. But sometimes seeing a movie about him is nice too. Yeah.
I mean, it could have been a nobody, and it would have been good or bad. Like, it's just,
No, I mean, going back to Tom Hanks, I will say, like, the casting made sense, although he doesn't really look like Mr. Rogers. But there are times when he's like, especially when they show him in the monitors, like, it's very eerie. Like, oh my God, like, that is him. That is Mr. Rogers.
From a motion graphics perspective, I love the filter they put on that. Because they made it a point to make it look like that old broken down CRT looking receptive. Like, they would transition between them in the trailers, like from where he was sitting on set and then they would pull back and then you would see it on a screen. I love that effect.
And there's a lot of that in the movie because the movie essentially starts off as an episode of Mr. Rogers. That's why the movie's talking to you, the audience, like directly to the audience. It's very brilliant. And in the transitions, as Gio was saying, like, they use the little model sets in Mr. Rogers' show, and even when they show like a real city, it's shot like in like almost a forced perspective way, so it still looks like a model. It's very brilliant directing.
So the way they do that, right, and this is just because I love that fucking thing. They do them all Adult Swim all the time. Yeah. So it's like it is a live shot of a city, but what they do is they put a blur effect around everything else so that the scale of it doesn't seem genuine.
It's very brilliant directing because it makes you go seamlessly from real life to the show.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. I wouldn't be surprised to see this as a Best Directing nomination at the Oscars.
Really?
It's really that good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. There's been a lot of good directors.
There's been a lot, but like the
year.
uniqueness of using Mr. Rogers' show to tell the story, right? As if it was a real episode, right? But it's a movie.
It sounds like what you guys are saying is that the guy is supposed to represent the whole world.
That's the way I took it.
Like
that's exactly how I took it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's trying to hide that at all. I think that's what it is. Because that's what I took from it,
All right, looks like we have 4 ins and 1 out and 1 undecided because Ernie didn't go watch it.
Well, whatever. We're going to take a small break. We'll be right back.
You think one of his family Walls killed? Is that what you're suggesting?
You all love twisting the knife into one another.
Up your ass.
Oh, very nice.
Matter of fact, eat shit. How's that? Eat shit, eat shit, eat shit.
Smug smile.
Definitely eat shit.
Knives Out. A detective investigates the death of a patriarch of an eccentric combative family.
Let's get the knives out, y'all.
That's it.
Knives Out. Who wants to go first on this little shindig? Ernie.
I'm gonna go first?
Yeah.
I'm fucking in on this fucking Knives Out, dude. I'm gonna tell you right now. I saw this movie, 9 a.m. Early bird special with all the old people. Yeah. Fucking hell yes, dude. All of them.
Laughing.
Oh, I love seeing them with these people now because they're quiet. They don't say shit.
They all fall asleep.
And then afterwards, they're all giving all these great like little moments in the movie. So I was like, oh, it's like a little recap. So fucking yes, I'm in. Mostly because of my boy Captain America, though. I fucking love that guy. But yeah, in.
That's when you realize you're getting old because you like watching movies with old people.
Oh my gosh, they were awesome. And then it was like a bunch of old couples, so it was like he's like, "Hey Judy, scoot over a little bit," like, and it just seemed like, it's adorable. I love it.
Ernie's in.
I'll go next. I'm also an in. Yay! You can't yay yourself. It's more for Meredith if she's listening to the show, our friend or coworker, because she's like, I told her straight up I don't like Ryan Johnson, straight up, I don't. And that's another.
But you're in on this one.
But I'm in on this one actually. I like the pacing and also like the way they did the little like back and forths, especially with Daniel Craig's character. Yeah, that's fucking. Daniel Craig was amazing in this movie. But I agree with you. I'm more in because of my boy Chris Evans, fucking Captain America's son. He was amazing in this movie. I loved him. So good. It's so good. We'll talk more about it in a bit. Who's next?
Everybody's looking at me again. I'm in. I'm in. I like this movie. I love murder mysteries. I love all the tropes and cliches that come with it. And anybody who listened to our Halloween special would understand. Yeah. We use a lot of the same stuff. Yeah, I thought it had a great cast. It really had me, because you try to guess along the whole way. And it's really good because it uses what you think are plot holes sometimes against you, to add to the mystery. So it's really entertaining. I'm
in as well. I thought it was funny. Like, it's laugh out loud funny at times. I did kind of feel it was a little drawn out at times. Like, it probably could have been tightened up a little bit. But but I'm still, I'm in on this. Though Daniel Craig's accent was kind of ridiculous. I understand the accent, but at times it was just ridiculous.
I want to see James Bond with that accent. That'd be so good.
Well, listen here, boy.
It just reminds me, like, it made me think of The Office when Andy's like explaining how to do the Southern accent. Like, that's my mind went directly to that. And I was just like, it's like almost couldn't take him serious for the rest of the movie.
It's like he watched Foghorn Leghorn. It's just like, I'm gonna do that. Is that okay, Ryan? Go for it.
Go for it.
James Bond, baby, you can do it.
Just turn it at 11 and go for it.
I'm in. I do think it was a little long. Of course, that's always my complaint. Yeah. At times I was like, okay, I found myself kind of trying to go back and forth, like, what the hell's going on? But also because, like, this isn't my type of movie, so I'm just like, what's going on? There's so many people, like, But in that accent, I know that's part of it. Like, it's all cheesy and stuff, but I was like, oh, shut up. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but this movie's fucking trash, dude. I'll just let No, man. I'm in on this one, man. From the beginning to the end. Sweet. This movie's hilarious, and each character was used like our the lead little thing. It was perfect, dude, and I thought it was funny, and each character was funny to me, too. They were used exactly like, you don't overuse everyone, so everyone's had their own time. And I really like the girl, the main character. Yep. She's hot. Yeah, Anna. Yeah, that one.
Well, it's Marta, but her real name's Ana de Armas.
Yeah, Ana.
Yeah. By the way, everybody enjoy that joke. Everybody enjoy that joke where they kept saying she's Brazilian.
Yeah,
her family's from Paraguay. She's like
Peruvian. Yeah, and they never established exactly where she's from, though.
She's Cuban, B.
I know she is.
Yeah, but I'm super in on this one. It was fun, and like I want to watch it again. Yeah.
One thing I will say, it has a great cast. Jamie Lee Curtis, Chris Evans, and all that. But I will say, I felt like the rest of the cast was a bit underused. After the first kind of 25 minutes, it shifts. The movie has a lot of plot twists and shifts. And it shifts to one side. I don't mind it. I like the story. But I felt like they were a bit underutilized, I think. It's a little bit disappointing. But, I mean, overall, I like the story. I do think it's a little bit too long. There was times where I was just waiting for the next plot twist. Yeah. Because every plot twist came with an exposition dump. So you really, you could step outside and go to the bathroom and just be caught up with the next exposition dump. But, I think it's very creative, very innovative. I didn't guess it, so I think that's a great sign. And like you guys said, my boy Chris Evans, great to see him in a different type of role. We knew he had the comedic chops, but he hasn't used them in a while. Because he's been, of course, because he's been goody two shoes for like 20 years now. That it's great to see him finally go away.
See, this is why superhero movies should stop, so that everyone can just get back to being an actor.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I'll say this because me and Gino, we had a similar in on this because he doesn't like Rian Johnson. Mm-hmm. I don't like movies that have an all-star cast because more times than not, that means that everybody needs their time, so they got to force 10 minutes of this person into somewhere. They got to force 30 minutes of this because he got paid more, blah, blah, blah. And I think because I came in with that, I thought, okay, so it's Jamie Lee Curtis and Chris Evans. Like, all these people are going to have their time, blah, blah. And that's what the movie almost uses to turn you on your head. He's like, we're not going to do that because you think that's what's going to happen coming in. They're the ones that are at the top of the fucking, marquee and everything. Their names are up there. And then they twist it on you. They're like, oh, but we're not really going to use them. We're going to mostly focus on this smaller thing, which is why I couldn't guess the ending. Yeah. Because fucking hell, man. Like, they do the interviews in the beginning. Like, do it with, the little text next to them. And they cut back and forth between the truth and the lies. The only person that doesn't do that is Chris Evans. Mm-hmm. They don't do like a whole cut between kind of thing with him until the very end. And I was like, oh shit, what's going on? You know?
Well, he
so
wasn't there. That was the thing. Like
right.
Supposedly.
But they didn't only did that with like certain characters. They didn't do it with what's her name, Martha? Yeah. Martha didn't do it with her. They didn't do it with Chris Evans, and they didn't do it with like
the little racist kid.
The little racist kid, or Meg, who was like her confidant, right? Yeah. So it was like those threw me off because I was like, okay, they're not bothering with them. They're bothering with like these fucking badass actors and Daniel Craig.
But that's why I thought that like I was expecting them to finish off the interviews basically,
right?
And then it shifts, completely, and you go off like, well, now you're going to that mystery, and you're into that mystery, and then it shifts again and again and again. It was really great. I will say though, the kind of subplot of her being Latina and having to undocument, that was a little weird.
It was a little horseshoed.
It felt a little like, you know, like forced, and you have the character, the little racist character, you know, but yet they don't do anything with him.
No.
So I wonder, like, what are you saying here? Are you like, are you saying is like racists are bad and immigrants are good? It's like,
I think they had. I think because the whole family is disrespectful to her, and they see her as kind of like, you know, below them, obviously, because she's from somewhere else. I think they had the little Nazi kid to represent kind of maybe what they actually are, because they never actually. I don't think all of them are. But I think it's like, oh, look, we're at least not as bad as that kid, you know? Because, like, they really didn't need to put any of that in there. No. Sure, maybe they could have had a little Nazi cousin, but they didn't have to be, like, rude like that to her. And, like, the fact that they have, oh, she's Bolivian, she's from Uruguay, or she's from wherever, like...
That joke is so
funny.
But
I think the thing is that, like, you know, I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to raise the stakes of her being an immigrant and all that. But I think murder is already as high, like, the stakes are already high enough, you know? Yeah, I don't really need that, you know? Saying the whole immigrant thing, it's like doing a layup when you're up by 20 with 1 minute left. Yeah. But yet celebrating like you hit a buzzer beater, you know, at the end of the game. It's like, we get it, bro.
It's still fun.
Yeah, it's like, we get it. Like, you know, racists are bad, immigrants are good. I don't need that, you know? You know, I don't
That's
need
Robert's
it.
stance.
I don't need
everybody
it.
knows.
I don't need it. Thank you. I don't need it.
I also think, what was she? The other lady who ends up with the spider on her face?
Oh, she's a
maid
or something like that?
Yeah, she's a
maybe she was a maid. That part was a little, like, she kind of only made her, like, she was kind of only used for that.
Yeah.
Which was also very convenient.
It's
Which, of
very...
course, they can do because it's, like, this type of movie, but, like,
Yeah, for her playing such a crucial role at the end, she wasn't as established as the rest of the characters.
But that's what this movie's been doing since the very beginning. They show you these big people that are supposedly like they're big deals, right? Mm-hmm. But actually, it's the whole thing turns into an ensemble, and everybody is used more like a fucking piece on a chessboard. Yeah. Because it just depends, and that's why like she's initially the one that discovers the body, which is why you think, oh man, she's gonna have like this big part in it, right? And she's like, no, they use her very sparingly, but she's very important to the plot.
I do wish I had seen her in more scenes though. Like we don't have to be focusing on her, but if we had seen her somewhere in the background, I think that would have been helpful.
Well, she popped up, I think, a couple times, like in the party scenes, just kind of there. But she was also, but she was also kind of that wild card because you're like, I didn't see her that much, so you kind of start thinking like maybe it was her, like kind of thing.
That's what I meant about the movie using what you think is a plot hole or something overlooked against you, right? Is essentially the movie's a step ahead of you, which it should be. But the whole time you're trying to figure it out as a viewer. Most of the time you can kind of figure it out. Yeah. But it's using the things that you expect against you. I think that's why it's great. It's great.
Speaking of things that you expect, what did y'all think of fucking Daniel Craig's accent?
I love it. I honestly really like Daniel Craig.
I like everything that he's in the movie, but his accent does go overboard. That's why when Chris Evans made that joke like foghorn or whatever, I started dying. Oh god! Like,
because like I think every once in a while you can hear it kind of just fade away. You can hear his accent in there. Just
and then I like also about the sorry, it's because I had a brain fart.
I say.
He was getting into character.
As Gino's new bit.
No, the part also like how they introduced him as well. That's what I liked how they introduced him. He was just in the corner by the piano. I know you've seen that a lot in the trailer, but I feel like there were moments he caught the bullshit.
That was
hitting the keys. Okay, is that what's supposed to?
I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's what was like. What was?
He hits the piano key to like interrupt them, right? And like poke them out. It kind of is his introduction, which I think is really clever. But I don't know if that is what he's doing. Is he doing like a bullshit meter?
Yeah, because he kind of like goes around when they're there's a part when they go talking within themselves. Him and the detectives are like, "This is what happened. This happened because this." I'm not gonna do that, but you know what I mean.
You're pretty good.
Hey, you're almost there. You're almost there. Yeah.
And he goes lights his big ass cigar. Listen here, the first person they did this. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like that's why I like that introduction. He's like, "So what'd you do in the party?" My father and I did. Bong, fuck you, bullshit. It was wrong. And I love that. That was really great. And then the way they use the granny. I love the granny.
That's another wild card.
That's another wild card.
You knew something was up with her when they pass her, and he goes like, "That's his mother." He's like, "His mother? How old is she?" Nobody knows. I was like, "Oh!" So this lady's already got a built-in mystery to her.
Yeah, she just sits there and with the cake in her hand the whole party. You know, and I was like, "Is she gonna eat that cake?"
See, I love it when Chris Evans walks in and he says KFC, CSI. I was like, Mr. Evans. But like his accent threw me off only because like he's 007. I already know he's British. Yeah. So to hear him do that, and then I've heard him do an English accent, but never this like Kentucky, suspenders,
but I think
tie in the shirt kind of thing.
He has done it before. He made a movie, I think, with Adam Driver a couple years ago. Yeah, where he was like a Southerner American. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I honestly, it's an acting role basically, where they just get to go in and just go for it. I don't care. It's ridiculous. It works for the movie. I was never taken out. I enjoy watching when you see actors like really enjoying, what do they say, chewing the scenery or whatever. It's just so much fun,
But here's the thing, right? It is that ridiculous.
Yeah.
But this whole fucking movie is ridiculous. Yeah. That's why, so when they categorize these kind of movies, I always get mad when somebody says a dark comedy, right? Like, there's a movie called The Breakup with Jennifer Aniston and I think it's Vince Vaughn. And they called that a dark comedy, and it's totally not that. Or what's the other one that's called?
It's not a comedy.
It's not a comedy.
Yeah.
What's the other one called, though? It's called, there's another one that had Seth Rogen, and he's like a mall cop.
Oh, Observe and Report.
That movie, they were like, "Oh, it's a dark comedy." He's like, "That is a fucking not dark comedy. It's just dark," and I got depressed watching it.
They call comedies dark comedies when they're not funny.
Exactly.
Because they know they're not going to get laughs, so they try to be all ironic and go, "Oh, it's a dark comedy." But no, it's not funny.
And I don't know about the rest of you, but there were moments where everybody just erupted in laughter in the middle of it, and it was like somebody's really passive comment in the movie or something.
There was a loud gasp in the theater. I can't remember exactly when, but like someone was like in the front row, like loud, like audible, like you can hear it throughout the whole theater.
Was that when you dropped your icy?
Maybe.
What the heck?
Don't worry, it's AMC. I was able to go get the free refill.
What I was saying about like Daniel Craig is that because they called it a dark comedy out of the gate, I was like, okay, so it's not going to be funny. So the fact that they were all being like these really ridiculous versions of themselves, I thought was fucking great. Like when you cut from Jamie Lee Curtis saying, like, Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie is so fucking sharp and smart, and she's, oh God, I loved her character. She's like, the detective's trying to bait her to give her like some information. Mm-hmm. And then she goes like, "Do you think I'm fucking stupid enough to have you bait her?" Smash cut to her husband. He's like, "I'm gonna tell you every single thing that I've ever done in my life." I was like,
"It's great.
It's
great.
So ridiculous to be on every spectrum."
It's great editing,
Exactly.
The joke is there.
Of course,
like you have to time it right, and
but
it's timed so well.
But you can't do that joke subtly. It's got to be so far one way and so far the other way. Yeah. And that's what this whole every single character is like that. So to have Daniel Craig play this fucking suspender snapping, like
Southern deep south.
And they call him a sleuth in it. I was like, oh Jesus. I mean, I thought it fit.
I will say I think Rian Johnson crafted the perfect Thanksgiving movie because let me explain.
Really?
Let me explain.
I think I know where he's gonna go.
I thought about this.
I think where he's gonna go. I think I know where he's gonna go.
It's the perfect movie to have on Thanksgiving Day. Have it on, because it's a movie about family, right? And they're all fighting and stuff, which we all do, right? So far, but here's the thing. When you put on a movie on Thanksgiving, kind of like football, you don't really pay attention to it, right? You kind of jump in and out. Yeah. Because this movie gives you like exposition dumps like every 20, 25 minutes, you get to pop in and out, going like, oh, this guy's good now. Oh, this person's bad now. Oh, this is happening. Perfect movie for Thanksgiving. Pop in and out as you please. Honestly, you could have walked in at the very end when Daniel Craig is giving his big reveal and gone, hey, you know what? This is a pretty good movie.
That was great
because it works. I think in that sense.
God. That's so funny.
So we have a sweep. All in, ladies and gentlemen. Sweeps. Yep. Well, next movie is Blazing Saddles. We'll be right back.
Please stand by as your next film is being prepared. And remember, no flash photography is allowed during listening.
He rode a blazing saddle, he wore a shining star. His job to offer battle to bad men near and far.
What's your name? Well, my name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
Alright, so Blazing Saddles. In order to ruin a western town, a corrupt politician appoints a black sheriff who promptly becomes his most formidable adversary.
Why'd you pick this movie?
Mel Brooks is one of my heroes. When it comes to comedy, he's great. There's nothing, kind of how Tarantino has a hall pass on certain things, Mel Brooks has a hall pass on a lot of things as well. On the comedy side. Everybody, a bit. No, but he just takes everybody down. But this movie is this movie is funny.
So does that mean that you're in on this?
It's my choice? Yeah. Unlike America, who gave us an out
on her pick.
On her pick.
Oh, that's right.
I'm in on this movie, yes. So, who wants to go?
I want to go because I agree with you. Like, Mel Brooks is another one of my heroes of mine as well. And this movie, I will say, is my all-time favorite Mel Brooks movie. Just the way how he hands down does the jokes with racism. And it just shows how racist people are back then, even now. And it's just how they casually just say all this stuff.
That's a good argument, Gino.
Let me finish.
Use racism.
No, let me finish. That's the basis of the movie. That's the basis of the movie.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it after.
We'll talk about it in a bit. I know it's not a good argument, but I'm in, of course. I'm all 100% in. All the way. Freaking hell. I'm in.
On the next, Mel Brooks, obviously. Love a ton of his movies. Super in on this movie. The reason too is it's one of these movies that doesn't get talked about a lot. So anytime anybody brings it up, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this movie. So I always get excited when we have any excuse to rewatch it. Although I will say I watched it by myself. I waited for everybody to go to sleep in the house, and then I watched it because I don't want my son picking up any kind of language.
Oh, I'm next.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna disappoint everybody right now, but I'm gonna have to go out on this. I like Mel Brooks. I wouldn't say I'm like a huge super fan. I had never seen this movie, but watching it for the first time, I get it. I get the satire. I get it all, but I just didn't find it as funny. That funny. Wow. There were like 3 or 4 jokes that made me laugh out loud because even though kind of like it's a little outdated today, timing is not outdated. And that's what they get right. That's what Mel Brooks is a fucking master at, right? Timing. And some of the jokes made me really, really laugh out loud. But honestly, at the story, I was kind of bored. And I was like, this is a product of its time, right? If I had seen this movie when I was younger, I probably would have loved it.
Yeah,
and I never did. So watching it today, I didn't, Mel Brooks influenced a lot of the comedy today, right? So that means comedy evolves, right? Yeah. And because I grew up with the evolved version of that, this version is not as funny to me, right? And I think, this is like, it's watching, the people who influence you, their influences, right? Yeah. And it doesn't always translate. So that's why I'm out.
I have to agree with you, Robert. I'm also out. Like, it's almost in, but I also found myself.
It's a high out.
And no, like it's an out. What was the last movie that you someone else like this?
Top Secret.
Yeah, Top Secret.
Top Secret. I thought that was so much funnier than this one.
Yeah.
You know, I know that's supposed to be like that, and even that one I was not into. But yeah, it just seems like, the story wasn't that great. It was funny. It was one of those laughs. I didn't laugh out loud the entire time. I was one of those like, you know, one of those nose laughs where you just kind of like breathe at it.
I did laugh. I laughed like out loud. Yeah.
But I mean, like, it was good enough. But I won't rewatch this. So yeah.
Ricky.
Yeah, so I love this movie. Yeah, I'm super in on this one. Dude, that shit was hilarious, right? From the beginning to the end, I thought it was funny.
The millennials don't like it. The PC millennials don't like it.
Dude, I thought it was hilarious. And then, like, you know how, like, the movie starts switching, and then, like, what do you call that? Fourth
wall, yeah.
Fifth wall, sixth wall. I don't know what the fuck wall it was, but this shit was hilarious. And, like, I've seen it before, but now that I watched it again, I'm old. This shit, and I was blown out of my mind. Boom! This movie is hilarious.
Gio,
I made me laugh.
Gio, I kind of think I know what it's saying when it does that, but can you enlighten what you think it's saying when it breaks that fourth wall?
Fourth wall?
Yeah.
It's a recurrent thing that Mel Brooks does. Like, it's just kind of extra bit of comedy that I think that he does, kind of like the cartoony elements to it. Because there's legitly, if you pay attention, there's a scene that's pretty much a Bugs Bunny cartoon in real life.
Yeah. The Mondo scene, right?
The Mondo scene where, like, even the music, he uses everything. The delivery is very Bugs Bunny. So it's just something I think he likes to do. And
one of the things I read is that Mel Brooks wanted to point out, kind of like, he's really against racism and all that, right? He wanted to point out racism in Hollywood, right? So in that final scene where it's a super long shot, right, and it pans over to literally Hollywood, you know, it's saying, like, you're fucking racist, Hollywood. You know? That's what I picked up from it, and I think that's what he was trying to say, right?
Well, all his movies kind of revolve around that.
But that's so literal, right?
Yeah, well, in this,
and it's funny.
In this one, the whole story is about the sheriff that gets appointed to this town. They don't like him at all because, one, he's black. You know, it's just about that racism. They don't like him because he's black. But, you know, they get to know him, then they start loving him, whatever. Like, he wins over their hearts. Yeah, their hearts.
Oh, racism.
Yeah, racism. Well, you just hate for hate, but, like, once you get to know people, you figure out they're just like us.
Of course.
So, you know, that
message.
Here's why I think a lot of people don't, or it's a tougher mountain to climb for Mel Brooks, because a lot of his stuff, for example, some of the ones that everybody loves, is like Spaceballs, Young Frankenstein, any of these other ones always did he do Robin Hood Men in Tights as well? All right, all of these already have the story in place. They're all movies that you've seen or stories that you've heard about, so there's no mountain to climb there. Blazing Saddle is essentially an original story. It is trying to do the Western tropes, but this new, like, introduction of the sheriff and all this thing, that's a completely new story. So he had a lot more homework to do with that, and maybe that's why a lot of this is, like, it's not as easy to make fun of this because it's something he had to originally write. Like I said, I'm still in on this one, but I can see why it's one of the weaker Mel Brooks pictures. You know, it's trying to send a message, which the other ones aren't doing that. They're just funny. And the story's already written for him. All he's doing is poking fun.
Yeah, the other ones are more a straight out parody. Of
exactly.
Yeah, like already source material. This one is kind of, pulling from those old Western movies.
Right,
and then just giving it
but there's like, it's not Shane, it's not like, you know, any of these classic Westerns.
It's a similar problem that one of your other picks has, Top Secret. Because the makers of that made Airplane, right? Which is directly a parody of the airport movies, right? And a lot of Mel Brooks movies, like Spaceballs, like it's Star Wars, right? And you know, so it's easier to digest because you know where it's coming from. This one, because it's an original story, it's not like, it's harder to get into.
Exactly. And I think that's a problem.
And he also made The Producers, right?
Yes.
And that's about, like, Nazis and all that stuff.
There's
Here, where it's kind of...
That is, if I'm not mistaken, that wasn't his original thing, right? That's an old play, isn't it?
I don't know.
It's an old play.
Yeah.
So because it's an old play, all the homework's already done. Now he's just, and that's the story. There's no parody in that. That is literally the story.
Yeah. And the story, I think the story, I mean, I know it's a silly comedy, it's a goofball comedy, but the story is not that strong, The jokes, you could argue, maybe are, and that's what carries this movie. Good. But as an isolated story, I don't think it's told very well. I think.
Yeah. Well, it's because I think it's more of jokes, is more focusing on the jokes than
true. But a comedy still has to have the story to
That's
back
what
it
I think
up.
it is, because it was funny enough. But yeah, it's the story's not really there. It's just sheriff wants this land, so he gets a black guy. That's it. And then that's as much as they explain, and then the rest of it is just kind of like N-word.
It was a plan that backfired on him.
Yeah,
like he's
we
get it.
That's obviously gonna happen, but it's just very no work was done to make this more creative or just better in any way.
The movie has I think fucking 6 screenwriters, right? Yeah. They're all there to write jokes, not write one of the story is
Richard Pryor.
The story is A, B, C. That's it. Yeah, we're not developing anything else. Let's fucking cram as many jokes in here as we can, which is fine.
It's kind of what I was saying earlier. If you take Robin Hood, what's the story of Robin Hood, right? He comes back, everything's fucked up, and then he makes it better.
That's it. That's the base.
Star Wars is kind of the same deal. Is they have something, they want it, and then they win in the end. It's a very straightforward. The Star Wars original, what is it, New Hope. Very simple story. It's a B movie. That's what it was written at. So to make fun of it is very easy because the story's easy, right? That's why this one is so much more complex. This story didn't exist beforehand. We don't know, it's not like Robin Hood where we know that story layout already. Yeah. Anybody...
But you do have something there, with Gene Wilder.
Oh, God, he's
hilarious.
So good in this. Yeah.
A lot of the times where I laughed out loud was because of him. That relationship could have been developed more. I mean, I'm asking a lot of a silly comedy.
Exactly.
Yes, you can't. Yes, I am watching it with today's lens. Yes, and I think that's why I think I'm being a little harsh on it. Like I said, if I had watched this when I was a kid, I probably would have loved it.
It did,
but those flaws become much more apparent when you get the nostalgia out, right? Just like any movie that we watched as kids.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. I mean, the part one of the best visual jokes is, and it introduces his character pretty well, is when he's what is it? He's playing chess with the Waco kid, right? And he goes and he's telling him who he is and what he's doing. So he's doing the exposition, right? But he does it in that funny way. He was he lifts up his hand and he says, "Look at me now," and he's that's steady as a rock. And then he's "Yeah, but I shoot with this hand." And this was twitching and everything.
That's what I meant about timing.
Yeah,
that's such impeccable timing. It's so perfect. Yeah,
the setup is all there, but again, these setups have to be. That has more work to do with them because if you want to set up that, in Spaceballs, if you want to set up that goofy helmet. That I forget that guy's
Dark Helmet.
Yeah, Dark Helmet. Right, he comes in. You know that scene. Everybody knows that scene. Everybody knows Darth Vader. So the joke of him lifting it and going, "I can't breathe," anything easy because now all that homework's been done for you. This takes more to build up.
And what you're watching is in his skits, right? Because a lot of the jokes are really funny. When he's coming into town and the guy spots him, right? It's a bong. That's really funny, right? The sign, the sign that when he's let me whip it out. Those are so finely tuned jokes, fucking hilarious, right?
Yeah. Not even when he holds himself as hostage.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. All those jokes are perfect. But story wise, there's not. I don't have anything there.
I totally feel you guys on this.
I'm. It's sad. I don't really care too much of the story. I just care for the jokes because the jokes are just priceless. And Richard Pryor, like Gio mentioned, Richard Pryor is one of the writers,
he was supposed to be in it.
And he was supposed to be in it. Yeah. He was supposed to be in. He was supposed to be the main guy, but I guess that didn't work out.
What was the reason?
So from what I kind of saw on IMDb, and I think I've heard in the past before, they couldn't get financed if Richard Pryor was the lead. Yeah. Apparently, on IMDb it says they wouldn't have been able to get financing if Richard Pryor had been the lead because of his comedy. It's just it's very in your face.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so he can't. I think Mel Brooks took him off as the lead, but gave him that I think a writing credit, even though he did come up with some of the jokes.
Weird that they wouldn't put this guy that's so in your face in a movie that's so in your face.
Well, because if you notice, the sheriff is not that. The character of the sheriff, he's not that person.
Yeah,
he's peace loving. Yeah. He wants to, except for in the beginning, but he comes into town. He's I want to make peace with everybody. I want to bring law back to this thing. That's not very Richard Pryor.
Yeah. And it goes back to the thing about Mel Brooks wanting to call out Hollywood. Right, that's part of it, and I think that's why it's such a great shot at the end when he pans over to the studios.
He should have set a sign that just said you're racist.
Yeah, like fuck you guys.
I feel like you in America watch this movie as executives. Like that's not funny.
No, I laughed.
Oh, no,
that's not
a good movie. It's not a good movie.
No, I mean I wasn't saying this is a bad movie. It was just like, okay, it's a movie. It's entertaining enough.
The storyline wasn't good.
Yeah.
No, it's past its time. I can't. And maybe I should try to see it for the time that it came out. You
were in your dad's testicles at that time, man.
This was like decade before.
Because we watch like classic movies, not with the lens of today. We try to watch with perspective, right? Mm-hmm. This movie changed, film and changed history and all that.
Yeah, well,
and I didn't really watch it that way. Maybe it's not fair, but it's me watching it in 2019. So.
Yeah, because there's a reason that Casablanca is so revered because it's shot in a way that's very contemporary. It's like it feels like a movie that was shot today.
Yeah.
As opposed to movies in this era, we're still kind of in that stage play, big like speeches. You need a lot of energy. You need to be waving your arms around and talking like that to make sure that the audience understands what's happening.
Yeah.
A lot of movies from the 60s and 70s are shot like that. Like the classics are not. Classics can still be that are like.
Well, they're classic because they didn't go.
They subverted.
Yeah, they didn't play by the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
They made their own rule.
But this is a movie that's kind of like that, where they're like, okay, everybody's front and center. Make sure you do your speech, blah blah blah, and it's like it's written very, you know what I mean? Like,
it's
staged
like very old fashioned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you watch a movie like that, you kind of, I don't know if you give them a pass. I don't know if you want to say that, but you understand that that's how it was written.
You watch it with a different perspective,
right?
Yeah. But I didn't.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Good time.
Snowflake. No, just kidding.
Millennial snowflake.
You guys are all the same age.
Shut up.
I think I'm the oldest person here.
So we have 4 ins and 2 outs. Damn you, America and Robert.
Boo.
Overall, a lot of ins in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I thought it was gonna be all ins.
I honestly thought we were gonna have all ins on all movies. Yeah. Damn it, everybody.
You can still switch out on Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, it's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Ernie, again, thank you for letting us use your office to record this episode. Thank you for being a part of our guest.
Oh man, I enjoy every single time. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. So then you had to say thank you last time, so I apologize for that.
Oh, thank you again for that one as well.
So please don't forget to follow us on Instagram and not delete reviews one word to get updated on upcoming episodes and little shenanigan type posts. And tune in next time. Good night.
Thank you for listening. Please exit the podcast and don't forget to collect all your belongings and young children. We hope you enjoy listening and have a great rest of your day here at In Out Delete.
This has been a podcast presentation from the Zenith Corporation, working for a better tomorrow for all of mankind.